Hey, what's up, fam? Welcome back to the channel. I want to start with saying apologies for getting this one out a little bit late, closer to the fights, but I had a lot going on this week, and I just came back from jiu-jitsu, so I still have adrenaline coursing through my veins, and I actually did my research, looked into the fights, and I thought, you know what, fuck it. Let's get out the video, carry this momentum that we have from UFC 326. And that's right, went 9 out of 12 on predictions for UFC 326. And I think the only people I picked wrong was Cody Durden, Michael Johnson, and Luke Fernandez, which honestly most people picked wrong. The Michael Johnson Drew Dober was a 50-50, and then Cody Durden kind of shit the bed. But aside from that, everyone else, the main event more than anything is what I want to get right. I wanted to see Charles Oliveira go out there and get that belt, which essentially he did. You know, some people are being haters and saying that, oh, that's not what the BMF is, and he controlled him for 5 rounds, but they wanted to see action and get entertained. And fuck that, I'm a Oliveira supporter and fan all day. I thought that was a masterclass that Oliveira put on Max, and I was actually surprised on how easily he took him down and controlled him. And Oliveira was chasing the finish, at least for the first round, second round. You can clearly tell that he was looking for submissions. He wasn't just looking to control him on the ground for 5 minutes. He was actively chasing that rear naked choke. Unfortunately, he couldn't get it. Max's defense held up for 5 rounds, but hey, I'm proud of Oliveira, having gone through some pretty bad losses, like the one against Islam, getting knocked out by Topuria. He's been on the resurgence. He beat Gamrot, and now he beat Max Holloway for the BMF title. So I can't be more than happy for Oliveira. He's such a great guy, and he just carries this aura, this energy with him. So got the co-main event right too. Got my guy Caio Borralho, who got it done. Raul Rosas Jr. And yeah, got all of them right except for 3. And I was getting a little bit of hate on the comments saying, I will say and own up to the fact that, my bets in the past, my predictions, I've made some bad reads, and I'll own up to it. But last week I kind of turned the page, I flipped the switch, and we're just going to carry that momentum forward for the rest of the year, hopefully. So yeah, with that being said, let's dive into these fights and go over the whole fight card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. And kicking off the card, we got Piera Rodriguez versus Sam Hughes. Piera Rodriguez, 11-2. This girl's actually pretty solid. She's an aggressive fighter. She's always going to look to push the pace. She's always going to want to look for the wrestling. She'll kind of set up shots to ultimately shoot a takedown or clinch up against the fence and then work for the takedown. And in her fight against, I believe it was, I actually went back, I saw the Sam Hughes fight, and there was a fight I was actually very interested in that I went back and saw against, I believe it was Jocelyn Netsuren or Ketlin Sousa, but I just remember this girl not even gassing, because a lot of the times when fighters try to work for takedowns, mix in the wrestling and make that their full game plan, a lot of times they get tired and the better fighter usually wins. But Piera held up. She worked for the takedown. She didn't get them. She striked and kept working and ultimately winning a decision. But I like her style. I think she does have a pretty good gas tank. It wasn't the best, but enough to say, hey, this girl can actually stick to the game plan and implement it. And I think that's what she's going to do in this fight. She's a orthodox fighter. Her takedown average is 4.5, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, she's an aggressive striker with power and strong wrestling and grappling. And she's fighting a girl in Sam Hughes who she's already beat. Sam Hughes, on the other hand, she's a tough girl, tough veteran with volume, durability, and improving submissions. I will say Sam Hughes is, this girl is an underdog. I think she's been the best underdog to bet in like the entire UFC, because I don't know what the statistic is, but I know she's hit on almost every time she's been an underdog, which is insane to me. But this fight is mainly just going to be aggressiveness and that pressure, push forward pace by Piera Rodriguez against a more experienced girl in Sam Hughes, which since their last fight, I will say Sam Hughes has probably improved more, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to win this fight. I think that Rodriguez wrestling power is going to be enough. I'm gonna go with the side of Piera Rodriguez. I think she gets the win here. A lot of times, I forgot the statistic, but usually it's like 67% or close to 70% of people who win the first fight between two fighters usually end up winning the second. And I really don't see how Sam gets her out unless Piera gasses and kind of leaves an opening for Sam Hughes either to get a submission or win a decision, because I honestly believe this fight's going to go to decision. I just think Piera's aggressiveness and ability to do a little bit more is probably what's going to get her the nod on the judges' scorecards. So give me Piera Rodriguez to get it done against Sam Hughes. I do think this is going to be a close fight, though, and definitely going to decision. Then we got Luan Lacerda versus Hecher Sosa. We got a Brazilian versus an Espanol. Luan Lacerda, this guy, from what I saw, primarily a grappler. I went back and saw some tape of this guy on the regional scene, and he was fighting a guy who was also primarily a grappler who's like looking for leg locks, but Lacerda defended pretty well. He did good. This dude is 33 years old, 13-3. As you can see, he's going to be looking for the grappling, but he is a striker with pretty decent power. But his main attribute is his grappling, and I think he is the better grappler in this fight against Hecher Sosa. Hecher Sosa on the other side is a well-rounded prospect with finishing ability. I just think the hype is not there. I don't really see it. I went back and saw his fights, and he did beat these guys. He was on that promotion WOW that they do in Spain, similar to UFC, just not on the same level. So I think Ilia Topuria has been and like tried promoting it. I don't know if he's involved, but I saw him against some guys, and they didn't really seem very high level. It was kind of like showcases for Hecher Sosa. But needless to say, this is going to be a more power versus versatility fight. Both of these guys are high-level regional debuts, and I'm going to go with the side of Lacerda. I think Lacerda as a dog, I think this is where the upside is, honestly. Because I picture this fight at least at one point having grappling exchanges or the fight hitting the mat at one point or another. And I think Lacerda is just going to do more and get into more dangerous positions than Hecher Sosa. And on the feet, I don't think Hecher Sosa holds like such an advantage to Lacerda as some people might think. So give me Lacerda in this one. Method of victory, I'm not too sure, but I'm going to go with the dog here. I'm going to take a shot on Luan Lacerda. Then we got Mesquita versus Montse Rendon. I don't know. Montse Rendon, for the odds, has been floating around as a potential, dog of the card. But to be honest with you, I'm gonna go with Bia Mesquita here. I think it's just different levels of grappling. Granted, Montse does have pretty decent takedown defense, but Mesquita, she's an undefeated prospect with a strong grappling base. Rendon, on the other hand, she's a striker with power and forward pressure, and this is a typical grappling versus striking match. And if I thought Montse Rendon could ultimately defend all the takedowns, or not even herself engage in grappling, because she might do so, I would have gone with her. But the fact that I do see this fight at some point hitting the mat, I'm gonna go with Bia Mesquita. I think Bia Mesquita should win this fight, but it is women's MMA and anything could happen here. But I'm gonna go with Bia Mesquita. Not so confident. I would definitely not put money on her at those odds. It's insane. But give me Bia Mesquita to get it done ultimately, probably by decision. But who knows? This fight could end in submission. Then we got Brad Tavares versus Eryk Anders. This is honestly a 50-50. This is like, you can toss a coin in the air and whatever side it lands, that's who you put your money on. But that being said, do not put your money on this fight because you literally don't know what's going to happen. But Brad Tavares, 38 years old. This guy is 21-12. He's just a veteran kickboxer with range. You know, he does have some durability. His output can be low at times, but he is a little bit technical. Andre, on the other hand, this guy is a southpaw. He's a power puncher brawler, and he does have some wrestling background, and he is explosive, but for the most part, he is inconsistent in his game. But this is going to be a veteran scrap, man. Both of these guys are veterans. Both of these guys are at the tail end of their careers. And they're both, I want to say, kind of durable. This is going to be probably a decision, or honestly, just like someone lands something and ends up knocking the other guy out. I'm going to lean the side of Brad Tavares, though. I'm going to go with the fellow Hawaiian. And I guess just recently his form has been a little bit better than Eryk Anders, but give me Brad Tavares. Honestly, this one's just so close of a fight. I can't see anyone like being confident in their pick here between these two. I do just want to check one thing with both of these guys. So Brad Tavares, coming off a loss, a KO loss, which is not a good look. Granted, it did happen in September, so it's kind of been, it's about to be like 6 months. So not the best, but, that is reasonable. And then we got Eryk Anders, who I also believe is coming off a loss to Chris Duncan, who also got KO'd in August. So both of these guys are coming off of KO losses. One guy got KO'd a month after the other one. But yeah, give me Brad Tavares here. Confidence is like near zero, but I'm going to go with Brad Tavares here as my official prediction for this one. All right, then we got an interesting one. We got Bolaji versus Manoel Sousa. Bolaji, this guy's going to come out there. He's got some technical ability, but this guy is a power puncher. He's going to go out there and scrap, which I like in fighters. He's very athletic, and he has speed and power. And you can say this guy is an emerging prospect. He's fighting a guy in Manoel Sousa, who I did see on the regional scene. Not regional scene. I don't know if you want to consider Bellator regional, but on Bellator, fighting an American who was a wrestler. That dude was shooting like double leg running takedowns, like on some Jordan Burroughs shit. Literally just like blast double and took Manoel Sousa down. I will say Manoel Sousa doesn't really have a good get-up game. Like, if you are going to take him down, you can probably rack up control time. And that's ultimately how that other dude won. he is aggressive and he is going to pressure forward, but his output is pretty low. Like, it just looks like he's going to throw, but he doesn't really end up throwing a lot. But in the UFC, I'm going to go with Bolaji here. I'm going to take a shot on another dog. I liked Manoel Sousa in that performance. He did have his moments, but the output just wasn't enough, and I didn't really see him land too cleanly on this guy who was primarily a wrestler. He did have pretty decent boxing and defense, but ultimately it just wasn't enough to sway me, where I went back and I saw some of Bolaji's tape and past fights, and I could see him putting out Manoel Sousa or, you know, winning a competitive decision. And I know he's coming off that loss against Mason Jones, which, guys, if you want to see a crazy fight, go watch that Mason Jones fight. He almost had that dude out, and then he came back and ultimately KO'd Bolaji, but it was a back and forth fight. It wasn't like Mason Jones came out there, dominated, and just KO'd Bolaji. No, that was a back and forth, a scrap. I think he probably learned a lot from that fight, and before that, I did see his fight against Michael Oswell. You know, that was a pretty, you know, impressive performance by him. He pretty much dominated Oswell, landed clean, racked up the significant strikes, and ultimately won a unanimous decision there. So unless Manoel Sousa comes out and just like tries taking him down and looking for the submissions, I think this is gonna be a back and forth fight. Manoel Sousa could land you know, something clean and ultimately hurt, rock Bolaji and maybe follow up and put him out. But I just see Bolaji. I just see the chances of that happening more on the Bolaji side than Manoel Sousa. So give me Bolaji in this one. Then we got Elijah Smith versus Suyoung. This dude is a prospect, man. Elijah Smith, this is probably one of my most confident picks on this card. And just off the bat, I'm going with Elijah Smith. This guy should go out there and get it done against a guy like Suyoung. Elijah Smith, this dude is 9-1, well-rounded skills, super high athleticism and finishing ability. On the other side, you got Suyoung, who is a veteran with volume. His honestly, his main attribute is his wrestling. He's gonna look to take the fight down to the ground and just rack up some control time. But yeah, this is kind of a prospect versus veteran test. Suyoung, you know, 16-3. But man, this dude Elijah Smith is a high level talent, man. And I could see him going pretty far in this division. You know, he does have a father who was in the UFC. You know, he knows the game. He knows what to work on, what things he needs to fix up and buff out. So I like Elijah Smith here, and I'm probably gonna have a bet on him on this fight. But give me Elijah Smith to get it done. I don't know if he puts him out, but you know, Elijah Smith could end up getting a KO here in this fight, but I don't know. I'd have to think about that, but Elijah Smith probably wins the decision here against Suyoung. If anything, Suyoung will try to take Elijah Smith down, and Elijah Smith will most likely end up on top and kind of just work either from top control and just like land and rack up some control time and do some damage, or work his way back up to his feet and possibly get a finish here. It would be nice, but give me Elijah Smith as the official prediction. I don't even know why I'm still talking about this fight. But then we got Vitor Petrino versus Steven Asplund. So I will say this. I was going to go with Vitor Petrino in this one, but I think I'm going to go with Steven Asplund, man. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick Steven Asplund here. Vitor Petrino, you know, Brazilian, I think we've all seen him. He's massive with power and jiu-jitsu. He recently just got his black belt, but he's coming off a hand injury, which is one of the reasons why I kind of switched my pick. He's had that hand wrapped, and I really don't think he's been able to train maybe the past few weeks. So I don't know how he's going to come in here physically with the hand and how the cardio is. And Asplund, this guy's a tough volume guy, grinder who clinches and wears guys down. And I think that's ultimately what he has to do in this fight. I think that the first round is probably going to be Vitor Petrino KO or bust, to be honest, because it makes it out the first round. I think Steven Asplund is going to do what he did to Sean Sharaf, which is just like, his volume was insane. He just kept landing significant strikes. You know, it wasn't any crazy shots. He did land some of damage, but it was ultimately just like peppering shots, and ultimately the ref stopped the fight just because it just didn't look like Sean Sharaf was doing anything to protect himself, because it was just an onslaught by Steven Asplund. So that being said, this injury could be huge for Vitor Petrino. Petrino has the finishing upside, but Asplund has the durability and pace. So I'm leaning towards Asplund here. I think he's going to grind out a late finish and ultimately get Vitor Petrino out of there, maybe in the second or third round. So give me Steven Asplund as my official prediction for this one. Moving up the card, we got Chris Action Man Curtis versus Myktybek Orolbai. So for this one, Chris Curtis, I think we all know this guy. You know, he is a veteran boxer with crisp hands, but he's fighting a guy who is a rising wrestler in Myktybek Orolbai. Orolbai's grappling is definitely his edge in this fight, and I think that's ultimately why I'm going to go with Orolbai in this fight. You know, Chris Curtis has shown that he has pretty solid takedown defense, but I don't know, man. I just can't trust Chris Curtis anymore at this point in his career. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like his mindset or the fact that his game really hasn't improved. I think he's kind of just like been stagnant and stayed the same fighter since I've been seeing this guy fight in the UFC. So I think we know what we're going to expect from Chris Curtis, and I think Orolbai has the upside here. I think he'll be able to put on the pace, mix in the wrestling, and even on the feet, he might just land some things of damage, but ultimately it's just that, you know, well-rounded ability from Orolbai that ultimately is going to get him the win here. And plus, he's from Kyrgyzstan, man. These guys, this dude is literally a caveman. His ancestors were some of the first people on Earth. So this guy is definitely has some, you know, some pretty solid genes. Yeah, I definitely think Orolbai is going to get the win here. So give me Orolbai as the official prediction for this fight. All right, and then moving up the card, we got Charles Johnson versus Bruno Silva. Charles Johnson, 35 years old. This dude is literally a prospect killer. He goes out there, beats guys, and these guys go and end up being top of the division. Because I do believe he beat Joshua Van, who's the champ right now. He beat Loner Kavanaugh, who just beat Brandon Moreno. And I forgot if there was one other person that Charles Johnson literally changed his life to the positive, you know? I could be wrong. It could have just been those two guys, but he beat Sumaderchi, who just had a pretty solid win against Jesus Aguilar at UFC Mexico. So that's a pretty good win. But aside from that, yeah, he is coming off a loss to Alex Perez, you know, KO loss in the first round. it's probably definitely not a good look. You know, he came out there as the favorite, and he should have got a win over Alex Perez. But hey, Alex Perez, that dude, as I said in my last video, I actually had him as a dog, Alex Perez, as one of my favorite dogs for that card. And Alex Perez just came out, swung, and landed something of consequence and put Charles Johnson down. That fight wasn't too long ago. That was only in January. So Charles Johnson's making a pretty quick turnaround from that. But I think he should ultimately get the win here against a guy like Bruno Silva, where I think Alex Perez, he wasn't really expecting him to throw shots of consequence like that, where I think he knows what Bruno Silva's game plan is going to be. And Bruno Silva is just going to go out there and try to land something of consequence, which when a fighter knows that, I think it's just very less likely. So Bruno Silva does have power in his hands, but I think Johnson's experience and pace should carry him to get a decision win here over Bruno Silva. You know, he is a volume striker. Charles Johnson at times has solid defense, and I just don't see Bruno Silva landing anything damaging on Charles Johnson. So give me Charles Johnson to get it done as the official prediction here via decision. Moving up the card, we got Ian Cutelaba versus Oumar Sy. This is a good one. Ian Cutelaba, this guy is fighting a rising star in Oumar Sy. You know, Cutelaba is chaos. This dude is chaos personified. Literally every fight I've seen him, at least recently, this dude comes out and is a wild man in there. He is literally going to go out there, and I don't know if he is against Oumar Sy, but straight to the point. He's literally going to go out there and try to get a finish or get finished himself. He has explosive power, heavy hands. He does have pretty good wrestling, but a terrible gas tank because he honestly doesn't know how to pace himself. But he's a veteran who's exciting, but just very inconsistent. Where C is a long, rangy kickboxer, sharp counters, and better at pacing. This dude is a Frenchman, and he has been exposed, but I guess he kind of, you know, got some of his momentum back with the bounce back win he's had. But that fight that he was supposed to win, I believe it was against Alonzo Menefield that he lost, really put a bad taste in everyone's mouth. Yeah, it was actually against Alonzo Menefield. Put a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and everyone thought this dude was a fraud. But I don't think he's a fraud, but he's not as good as people thought he was, because he did bounce back and get a KO win against Brenson Ribeiro, which was actually pretty impressive. So, you know, is he light heavyweight champ material? No. But is he better than Ian Cutelaba? I think so. So I'm going to go with Oumar Sy to get it done here against Ian Cutelaba. C, I believe, picks him apart and probably cruises to a decision here. If it goes long, you know, like I said, you could have an early blitz by Cutelaba. So if Oumar Sy doesn't finish him early, he probably will, you know, take over as the fight goes on and ultimately get a decision win over Ian Cutelaba. So give me Oumar Sy to get it done in this one. And then we got Marwan Rahiki versus Hardwick. Marwan Rahiki, this guy is a young KO artist. He has high output. He does have nice kicks and elbows. And he's taking on the guy in Hardwick, who I believe is from Cage Warriors. He's English, so he has to be from Cage Warriors. But Rahiki is explosive. I don't know. At least from the pictures I've seen recently of him, he just looks he has he just has like an eating disorder. This dude is just so skinny. But I actually saw him in his fights, and he's a little bit more built out than this, because it's featherweight. It's not like these guys are bantamweight or flyweights. So Hardwick does also look a little anorexic in this picture, but both guys are pretty lean. Although Rahiki does look a little bit more filled out when he steps into the octagon. But Hardwick, on the other hand, this dude has pressure, but just lacks athleticism. He's like very stiff. Rahiki should control distance here, land some nice kicks, land more significant strikes, and ultimately win by decision. I don't see him putting out Hardwick. Hardwick does have, pretty decent chin, or he is a little durable. I don't want to say chin, but he is pretty durable. So I do see Rahiki winning a decision here. Hardwick is coming off a loss to Kyle Fernandez by KO. So that's not a good look. And we got a rising prospect in Rahiki. I don't think he's going to be that nice, to tell you the truth, because watching him on the regional scene, he was aight. But he definitely should get it done against a guy like Harry Hardwick. So give me Rahiki here as the official prediction. Then we got Andre Fili versus Jose Miguel Delgado. Andre Fili, this dude has been around for a minute. Look at that record, 25-12. 35 years old. Dude is, an orthodox striker. He's a long-range kickboxer. He does have good kicks and elbows. And his wrestling is improving, but as we know against that fight against Melquiazel Costa, sometimes he leaves that head on the wrong side and ultimately got guillotined in that one. So he's gonna have a little bit better of a head placement, or more what's the word, attention to detail. So, but dude is durable. He's a veteran with a lot of experience, but he recently has had chin issues. So it's a little worrisome. He's fighting a guy in Jose Miguel Delgado who's rising right now. This dude's hot. 27 years old. He is a switch hitter, and he is explosive, high output striker with elite accuracy and knockout power. Very aggressive. Forward pressure and ability to switch stances is actually one of his better attributes. But this is a striker versus striker at similar reach. But I think Delgado's volume, accuracy could probably overwhelm Andre Fili. Fili does have the experience and maybe mix in a takedown or two just to slow down Jose Miguel Delgado. But I could see Delgado defending those takedowns. It's not like Andre Fili is at featherweight, a Volkanovski to be taking people down. So give me Jose Miguel Delgado as the official prediction in this one. Andre Fili does have a sneaky jab, but I can't see him getting it done against Delgado. He's too unreliable at this point in his career. Fili has been around forever, and maybe if he was younger, I probably would go with him in this one, because he is pretty crafty, and he's done it he's beating guys that at times I was like, I don't know if he was supposed to win this fight. But yeah, Delgado brings heavy hands, slick grappling. This could be a test for Delgado, reaching a vet with good experience, and him being tested by Andre Fili, and him having to go back and rework some things. So it could be one of those moments for Jose Miguel Delgado, but ultimately Delgado has the finishing upside, and he's the faster, more volume, more powerful striker. So give me Delgado to get this one done. And then moving up the card, we got Amanda Lemos versus Jillian Robertson. Co-main, man, really? For this one? This fight should have just been opening up the main card, but it is a fight night, it is at the Meta Apex. So Amanda Lemos, 38 years old, she's a southpaw. Hybrid, between she's a power striker, but does have some grappling. But she is primarily a striker. She does have dangerous submissions off her back and good cardio for a veteran for sure. At 38 years old, she's fighting a girl in Jillian Robertson, 30 years old, kind of now like in her prime, I guess. Orthodox. This girl's just a elite grappler with relentless takedowns. She's going to look to get this fight to the mat as soon as possible. Good chokes, and her striking has improved. I think she is working with Dean Thomas now. But yeah, her bread and butter is really her ground game. Has high ground control and very high submission threat. So it's not like she goes to the ground and just controls her opponents. She does look for the finish. And this is kind of going to be a grappler versus striker fight matchup. And Robertson's wrestling edge and grappling ability is probably going to be the difference here, because in the striking, although Amanda Lemos is the better striker of the two, I just think there is a bigger gap in the grappling department. So give me Jillian Robertson to get this one done. Amanda Lemos could land something of consequence, land a damaging shot and potentially finish her that way. But I just see it more likely that Jillian Robertson engages in a clinch and maybe gets her down, or Amanda Lemos takes her down, but ultimately Jillian can play from her guard and get a sweep, or just at some point I do think it's going to be in Jillian's world, which is on the mat, and we can see a finish here. This is a cheeky. I don't know what the round lines are, but I think this one finishes inside the distance. So give me Jillian Robertson, probably by submission in this one. Jillian Robertson is going to be the official prediction. I will say by submission here. All right, and then we got the main event. Probably the other most confident pick on this card, which it should be super clear. Kevin Vallejos here. This dude is 24 years old. Switch hitter, explosive, high volume athletic striker with switch stance versatility. He does have accuracy in those hands and finishing power. He has pressure and he is an undefeated prospect. Oh, well, no. He does have an undefeated streak. We know who he lost to. He lost to Gene Silva. And he wants that rematch bad, man. He actually called him out in his last fight. Maybe if he gets a win here and maybe racks maybe one more win, so probably get a win over Josh Emmett and maybe win against someone else in the top, or win against someone in the top 10. We could potentially be seeing a Gene Silva versus Kevin Vallejos fight. Some people will like to compare him to Ilia Topuria, but there's levels to it, and I'm a huge fan of Topuria, and I'm not going to disrespect my guy like that. However, I do think Kevin Vallejos does win this fight against Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett, man, it's hard to pick a 41-year-old against a guy who's 24, kind of on a streak, and does have some clout on his name, or some, what's the word for it? Momentum. That's the word for it. But Josh Emmett, he's a veteran power punching striker. He does have wrestling. He is very durable. We just all seen his striking just slow down, man. I felt actually pretty bad for him against that Topuria fight. That wasn't like one where Topuria just goes out and knocks him out. He literally just pieced him up for 5 rounds and was like dodging shots. His boxing looks so impressive in that fight, Topuria's, and he just made Emmett look like a regional guy in that fight. But Emmett does have a pretty good chin for his age. Ilia Topuria couldn't put him out, and that dude's put out multiple guys and multiple champions. Volkanovski, Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira. So this dude has a pretty good chin. So I'm I'm actually curious how Vallejos is gonna win this because I think he wins it whether it's by KO or by decision. But decision could be a sneaky bet here because I think most people are probably expecting Vallejos to put him out early. But Josh Emmett does have good durability. The age could be a factor, you know, as you get older. Sometimes that chin can go out of nowhere, and this could be a fight. I know that the UFC is purposely putting this fight together to kind of just, you know, build more hype around Kevin Vallejos. It would be nice to see a win from Josh Emmett here, but that is highly unlikely. So this is kind of experience in Josh Emmett versus youth, you know, experience versus youth. But ultimately, Vallejos' speed and volume is what's going to win him this fight. Emmett's wrestling and chin could keep him in the fight longer than expected. But yeah, Kevin Vallejos should win this one pretty easy. Sad to say because I could see Josh Emmett probably retiring after this one or maybe having one more in him and then hanging up the gloves. But hey, it's a good fight for Kevin Vallejos, and he definitely can get some more hype behind his name with a finish over a guy like Josh Emmett, which Ilia Topuria wasn't able to do, so he could probably have that in his cap. But give me Kevin Vallejos in this one to get it done. I'm gonna say by a late stoppage, so maybe around 3-4. I'd assume, but yeah, give me the young buck to get it done. So going back to the top, going with Piera Rodriguez to get it done over Sam Hughes via decision. I'm gonna go with Luan Lacerda to get it done over Hecher Sosa. I'm gonna take the dog here. Mesquita should win this fight against Montse, but my money is staying far away from this fight. Hey, and same with this one too, man. Brad Tavares versus Eryk Anders. Give me Brad Tavares as the official prediction. This one is going to be a fun fight. Bolaji Oki versus Manoel Sousa. I would keep this one on the radar, but I think Bolaji Oki's UFC experience and athleticism, technical ability is going to ultimately get it done over Manoel Sousa. Give me Elijah Smith. This dude is a prospect, and ultimately, I definitely expect to see this guy at some point in the top 10, if not top 5 of the division. Give me Steven Asplund as the dog over Vitor Petrino. There's just too many open questions on Vitor Petrino to take him in this fight. So give me Asplund as the dog to get it done late in the fight. Chris Curtis versus Myktybek Orolbai. Give me Orolbai to get it done over Chris Curtis. I just can't trust Chris Curtis at this point. Charles Johnson over Bruno Silva. I think this is one of the fights where Charles Johnson is going to expect this guy to come out and just try to land something of consequence or damage on him. And I think he's just going to piece him up from the outside, you know, dance around, land some good shots, maybe defend some takedowns from Bruno Silva, and ultimately get it done via decision. Ian Cutelaba versus Oumar Sy. This fight might actually end up being a fun fight, depending on how Ian Cutelaba comes out. If he comes out as a wild man, those first 2 to 3 minutes are gonna be exciting. So, but give me Oumar Sy. You know, he's the better kickboxer, has the reach, and has the tools to get it done over Cutelaba. Give me Marwan Rahiki over Hardwick in this one. I can't go with Hardwick, man. This dude, just look at that face, man. I don't know. Give me Rahiki, the battle of the anorexics here. Then Andre Fili versus Jose Miguel Delgado. I like Fili, man. This dude is cool, and he's had some pretty good post-fight interviews, but I'm gonna go with Delgado. He has the hype right now. He's coming off an impressive finish, I believe. He's coming off an impressive finish where I do believe he was the dog in that fight. against Nathaniel Wood. Yes, he was a dog against Nathaniel Wood and ended up winning that fight via decision. And before that, he's had 4 KOs in a row. Granted, one of them was not in the UFC. One of them was on Contender Series, which ultimately got him the contract. And then he got 2 KOs, one over Hyder Mill, and then another one over Matthews. So this dude is on a kind of run. You know, that Nathaniel Wood... Actually, it was a loss. Oh, shit. It was a loss to Nathaniel Wood, but Nathaniel Wood is kind of high, very high level. I'm surprised he fought Nathaniel Wood that early on into his career. That's kind of crazy. But Nathaniel Wood is one of those guys who, if you go look at him, he's like what you want to replicate in like a very technical fighter. Because he has great boxing, great defense. But I think that was too much too soon for Jose Miguel Delgado. So I think the finish that I'm talking about was the Hyder Mill fight. Because I do believe he was probably an underdog in that one. But hey, Nathaniel Wood losing by decision to Nathaniel Wood is not a bad loss for your first loss in the UFC. And I think he's probably going to bounce back here against Andre Fili, who is a vet at this point in the game. Then Amanda Lemos versus Jillian Robertson. I'm going to go with Jillian Robertson in this one to get it done probably via submission. And then ultimately Kevin Vallejos in the main event over Josh Emmett. I just think Josh Emmett is kind of, I don't want to say washed, but just old, man. 41 years old, fighting a 24-year-old. Damn, doing my guy Josh Emmett dirty like that. But I say late stoppage from Kevin Vallejos in this one. So those are my picks and predictions for this fight night. Like I said before, I wanted to close out these videos with something a little bit different. You know, not telling you guys to, you know, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. But I've actually been reading a pretty interesting book lately, and there's something that just stuck with me that I wanted to share with you guys. And anything you do in life, right? There's people out there who have great ideas, but they sit on it. And the most important thing to be successful is execution. Execution. It doesn't matter what it is, but as long as you execute, you're going to go a lot farther than people who have great ideas but don't do anything about it. And a lot of the times it's the fear of failure that drives people to not follow through or carry out some of those brilliant ideas. Because in history, there's been people that have founded or came up with certain ideas, but they weren't the ones that got rich. There were people that maybe came after them that took those ideas and just said, fuck it, and went out and did something with that idea. So started from the ground up and built businesses that ultimately got them rich and successful. So whatever you do, execution is the most important thing to success. And I think it goes with everything in life. A good example is martial arts, right? You can do all the studying, you could do all the research, watching YouTube videos, tutorials, courses, whatever it may be. But if you're not putting the time on the mats, you're not going to improve. You're not going to get better. You're not going to develop the muscle memory that you need. And I'm talking about specifically in jiu-jitsu, but I think it's the same in like Muay Thai, boxing, whatever it may be. Because you can learn in boxing, you know, jab, right hook, like a 1-2, a 3, a left hook, a right hook, you know, uppercut, all the movements. But if you're not practicing them and you're not at the gym and you're not implementing it, you're never going to get to be, you know, a great boxer. And same thing in jiu-jitsu. If you're not in the mat, practicing escapes, practicing submissions, practicing certain positions, drilling, you're never going to get good at jiu-jitsu. As much as you watch YouTube and tutorials and buy courses, it's never going to happen. So in life, the one thing I can say is execution is key. And a lot of times it's scary, because another point that I got from the book is people fear failure a lot more than they fear regret or the chance of success. Failure is really what drives a lot of people to not go out there and implement, whether it's an idea or a business idea or whatever it is. A lot of times fear holds people back. So once you overcome that fear of failure, and that is an option, but I think that's something people should go out there and acknowledge, but be okay with it. You know, there's a lot of people fail, and you are going to fail in life. Failure is a part of life. And as long as you're able to as long as you're able to learn from failure and not make the same mistakes, you're going to go a lot farther in life than someone who hasn't experienced failure. So with that, I'll leave you guys. I hope you like these predictions, and let's kill it again, man. We're riding high off UFC 326. I really went back, did my research on these ones, and pretty confident in this card. I think it should be a pretty solid fight night. I was thinking, it was like, is this on the road or at the Apex? So at the Apex, it is a pretty solid fight night for the Apex, and there are some interesting matchups here. We might see some finishes. So I'm excited for this one. I hope this one goes well. Stay tuned, guys, for some more videos. I will be breaking down next week's fight card a lot sooner than this one comes out, like closer to the fights. So stay tuned for that one. Love you guys. Appreciate you. And see you guys in the next one.